Chapter 3. The Headache. An adaptive interface must never grant a mind more than the mind can answer for. Capability without proportion is not a gift. It is a fall, waiting for a body to fall in. VERITAS Ethics Review Note. Archived Draft. Ezra Kane woke with a drill behind his right eye and the impression that whoever held it had chosen patience over force. He did not move at first. Movement made the pain flare. He stared at the hairline crack in the bedroom ceiling and listened to his own pulse count time in the dark. He did not know Lena Ariston had taken a skull into the dark below her lab, or that a girl on a southbound transfer had begun counting exits. He only knew VERITAS had put an ancient word inside machinery built to touch the human will. The room around him held the stillness of a life arranged not to ask for comfort. On the chair by the bed lay his old teacher's prayer book, still open to a page Ezra had not prayed through. Across from him, the seminary photograph remained face down on the shelf.
"Too much coffee,"
he muttered. The neural band above his left ear disagreed. Sleep debt, 11.3 hours. Stress index, elevated. Cortical noise, above baseline. The transparent overlay hovered at the edge of his vision, projected from the narrow strip of black polymer at his temple. Ezra turned his head until the data slid out of sight. Hospitals called the medical builds neural lace. Wellness companies called the softer ones focus aids. Ezra called all of them intimate machinery. VERITAS paid him to find the place where help became coercion. Some mornings, like this one, he wondered whether they had hired him because he could stop something from happening, or because he made the company look as if it wanted to be stopped. Austin lay outside his window before sunrise, all sodium light and wet pavement. The city never slept. It only lowered its voice. Ezra swung his legs out of bed. He did not turn on the lights. He had memorized the apartment in the 3 years since he moved in, and he had changed almost nothing since. Second-hand couch, books stacked by subject and grief. A room careful enough to pass inspection, and lonely enough to tell the truth. His life had become a set of thresholds. Before his brother Levi died, and after. Before seminary, and after. Before prayer became silence, and after. Levi had loved hospital vending machines with a loyalty Ezra still found unreasonable. Near the end, when the doctors had begun answering questions by looking at shoes, Levi made Ezra promise not to let anyone pray in the voice people used for funerals before the funeral had happened. Ezra had promised. Then he had prayed anyway, bargaining through dry lips while Levi's hand cooled inside his own. And afterward he could never decide whether the betrayal had been the prayer or the bargain. So he kept the seminary photograph face down. He kept the prayer book open and unread. He kept God at a distance, close enough to accuse and too far away to obey. He pressed his thumb against the band.
Status.
The device chimed. Neural interface. Online. Last sync. 307. Pending system alerts. 1. Ezra stopped with one hand on the kettle.
1. Source.
Source. VERITAS. Firmware QAQ. Ethics review priority. Automated escalation. Of course. Automated escalation meant the filter had found something that could reach patients if nobody stopped it. He set the kettle down without filling it.
Open it.
A window unfolded in the dim kitchen air. Subject: Lexicon anomaly. Signed: medical build. From: QA-bot/Veritas. 2. Ethics review at Veritas. Ezra.Kane@Veritas. Flag: non-standard, non-medical phrase detected in cognitive pattern library. String: we are the Nephilim. For one clean second, the headache disappeared. Then it came back harder.
No.
The word fell flat in the kitchen. Plainly, a phrase from Genesis had been placed where the device shaped suggestions near a patient's will. He enlarged the alert. Component, adaptive suggestion lexicon, language priming. Deployment path, medical beta cohort, partner validation. Manifest status, compiled into signed runtime bundle. Author, unresolved. Nephilim, Genesis 6. Giants, fallen ones, men of name, a theological sinkhole deep enough to swallow patience. Ezra had spent years learning why careless people loved that word. It gave ambition a mythic costume. It let hunger call itself destiny. The old supernatural vocabulary was harder to flatten into metaphor than modern readers like to admit. Divine counsel, rebellion, powers that were not decorative and not safe, because the modern habit had learned to be embarrassed by them. The word pulled up an old classroom, a narrow seminary hall, Father Dumont striking a tuning fork against the desk until the whole room felt the note in its teeth. In the beginning was the Word, the old man had said, and the Word has never stopped moving. The world will call it vibration, a field, an energy. Do not be impressed by the smaller names. It is only creation still answering the one who spoke it. Then he set the fork down and turned to the board. The Nephilim were not monsters because they were strong. They were monsters because they had power without proportion. Giant ability, infant wisdom. That is the real fall. Not from heaven, but from balance. Ezra had rolled his eyes at the theatrics and written a clever essay that missed the point entirely. He understood it better now, with the words sitting in code bound for human nerve tissue. Power without proportion was never only a story about giants. It was a story about anyone who could build faster than he could be trusted to. The old sin, his teacher used to say, was knowledge severed from obedience, gift made into technique, technique made into permission. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth, the old man had quoted from 1 Corinthians. Ezra had argued with him every time, and the old man had never raised his voice and never lost the argument. And now the thing sat inside a firmware build designed to help machines suggest thoughts near the edge of human will. He scrolled into the pattern record. Source, Voss Archive. Display text. We are the Nephilim. Influence, high. Patient gate, active. In plain terms, when a patient's neural interface needed to fill in a thought too fast for the patient to form one on her own, this lexicon offered candidate words. The phrase had been given high weight. If a patient hesitated, it would be the first answer the machine reached for. Patient gate active meant the offering was already deployed in the field.
Inherited from what?
The system offered no answer. He poured water into the kettle, overshot the fill line, and muttered something he did not finish. Tea could wait. High influence meant the phrase was not sitting harmlessly in a file. Active gate meant a patient could meet it before anyone explained what it was. He pulled the safety manifest into view. The disclosures were there. The medical justification was there. The usable pause was not. The build did not command anyone. VERITAS lawyers would love that distinction. It simply made one response easier than another through a device millions of people were learning to trust because the alternative was tremor, seizure, panic, fog, or pain. Ezra had spent enough time in ethics review to know that merely was where the bodies were buried. Every release of the lace came back more capable and harder to read. 2 years ago, his team could still explain why the system reached for a given thought. Now, they shipped builds whose behavior they could only narrate after the fact, the way you narrate weather. Capability had outrun the people meant to govern it. and the company had decided that was acceptable as long as the curve kept climbing. He opened the commit history. The anomaly had entered yesterday through a compressed merge path. No readable author, no ordinary branch, an internal service account used for legacy migrations, right in the middle of his review meeting on abuse pathways, where he had been telling a vice president every adaptive build needed a fail-safe pause. Someone had been removing one. His teacher's old warning came back with procedural force. Do not admire force because it sings. Ezra tapped the band again.
Call Malik, on-call channel.
DevOps is outside business hours. Route to on-call?
Yes.
The line rang 3 times.
If this is about the consent flag again,
Malik said, voice thick with sleep.
I'm going to mail you a printed copy of the escalation policy and a very small violin.
It's not the consent flag. Adaptive Suggestion Lexicon. Voss archive. High influence. Patient gate active. No usable pause.
Sheets rustled. Malik was awake now.
Say the middle part again.
No interrupt window.
I meant the pattern ID.
73A9. NEP.
What is the phrase?
Ezra looked at the glowing words.
We are the Nephilim.
Silence filled the connection.
That had better be a prank.
Ezra said.
Nobody pranks partner validation, Malik.
Right, sorry, I'm opening it.
Ezra heard the shift in him, sleep burning off into discipline. Malik was the only DevOps lead who did not treat ethics review as a break installed by cowards.
I see the alert. I do not like this.
Then we agree.
It came through a migration service account.
That account should not touch patient gate logic.
It didn't, not directly. It touched an old restricted branch, and that branch slipped into language priming after last week's merge.
Ezra closed his eyes.
Old restricted branch?
Malik hesitated, navigating his own permissions.
I can see the label, not the contents.
Read it.
Voss archive. Human subject restricted.
The apartment seemed to lose heat. Ezra knew the name. Everyone in VERITAS ethics knew the name, though nobody said it in meetings unless counsel was present. Dr. Silas Voss had been brilliant, unmanageable, and officially dead after an overseas research accident tied to the earliest neural lace trials. The death file had always been thinner than the lawsuits around it. Santos warehouse, dental validation, no body released to family. Council treated questions about it as a contagion. The old staff stories never agreed on whether he was a saint or a catastrophe. They agreed on smaller things. He sat on the floor when beds frightened children, drew boxes around patient names before he spoke to parents, and remembered which child hated the blue adhesive. One archived pediatric memo still circulated in ethics. If Arturo fights the censor, change the censor. Do not score fear as non-compliance. Beneath that, in darker ink, Voss had written, a child should not have to understand the machine before the machine stops hurting him. His old thresholds were supposed to be locked away.
That archive is supposed to be sealed.
It was, or it was labeled sealed. Those are not always the same thing.
Sandbox it. No network bridge, no partner validation, no telemetry backflow.
Already spinning one up.
Ezra opened the branch metadata again and saw only blanks where names should have been.
I need the raw commit metadata, not the dashboard or compliance export. Who signed, what service touched it, what token authorized the merge?
If the archive is restricted, asking for that pings security.
If we do nothing, this goes into medical beta in 2 weeks.
I didn't say no.
Keys clattered faintly across the line.
There is something else.
Tell me.
External match. QA note says the phrase appeared in one encrypted Ariston sequence file in the last 48 hours.
Ezra knew the Ariston lab by reputation. He had also, 2 years earlier, signed off on custody questions routed through a half-dead VERITAS relay used by an anthropologist named Tessa Navarre.
I saw it. Do you know what that is?
Not a listed partner. The path is wrong. Forensic feed, side mounted onto the anomaly scanner, like somebody got impatient with the architecture. Someone inside VERITAS wanted the scanner to compare firmware against genetic data.
Malik dodged the word genetic 3 different ways before Ezra forced the plain version.
Your Genesis phrase just matched an ancient DNA file outside any partner path.
That is not better. Send me your blessing in writing, Father.
The joke hit wrong.
Don't call me that.
I know. Bad reflex.
Ezra rubbed the bridge of his nose.
Send the metadata to my cold mailbox and your off-site escrow. If anything locks you out, stop touching it.
And if anything locks you out?
Then pretend we never had this conversation until someone with a badge asks the wrong question.
The line clicked as Malik began routing the dump. Ezra stood in the kitchen with the kettle forgotten and the city breathing beyond the glass. He had not spent most of his adult life preaching. That would have required certainty, and certainty had left early. He had spent 3 years in seminary learning languages, doctrine, and moral theology, then carried the residue into machine ethics. 3 weeks after Levi died, Ezra walked away from the ordination track and did not go back. He did not renounce God. That would have been clean. He simply stopped trusting anyone who claimed to know what God had meant. He had chosen instead to believe in human responsibility. It was a smaller thing than faith, but it was something he could hold and act on. People did not need help imagining monsters. They managed that without assistance. They needed help imagining responsibility, because as far as Ezra could tell, no one else was lining up to take it. And now, a dead researcher's sealed archive had placed a sacred word inside firmware close enough to influence a human hand. Ezra reopened the deployment calendar. Red blocks filled the next month. Medical beta cohort activation, 14 days. Partner validation, active. Estimated downstream devices after release, 3.8 million. 3.8 million devices if the partner release passed validation. Some would be external bands, sleep patches, seizure monitors, focus laces, prosthetic bridges. Medically, the distinctions were real. Ethically, they narrowed fast. If a machine could learn the shape of a person's hesitation, it could learn how to erase it. His headache sharpened until the kitchen tilted. The band pulsed against his temple. Incoming file, Malik raw meta partial. The first packet opened before Ezra touched it. Most of the commit chain was encrypted or redacted by internal privilege walls. A few fragments remained visible. Source, Voss archive, human subject restricted. Approval, legacy service account. External match, Ariston. Sequence, NEP001, phrase verified. Note, compatible pattern, NEP001. The kitchen light flickered once. Ezra had not turned it on. He looked up toward the hallway beyond his apartment door. A shadow moved under the crack. Then someone knocked softly. Nobody knocked at 4 in the morning unless something had gone wrong. His neighbor across the hall sometimes confused the floors when her blood sugar dipped. This knock was not hers. 3 measured taps. Patient. Certain. Ezra crossed the apartment without turning on a light. His floorboards knew him and stayed quiet. At the door, he looked through the peephole. A woman in a slate-gray blazer stood in the hall, with her hands visible and her weight balanced over both feet. She was not a neighbor, and not police unless police had learned stillness from older institutions and left warrants to other people. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple knot. At her throat, half hidden by the collar, hung a small silver medallion worn smooth by fingers. She looked directly at the peephole.
Dr. Kane, I know you're awake.
Ezra did not answer.
We need to talk about your firmware anomaly.
Every muscle in his body tightened. He had told Malik, nobody else.
Who are you?
He said.
Ortega.
A surname tells me nothing.
It is the one you get through a door.
Ezra kept one hand near the deadbolt and one near the emergency call gesture on his band.
If VERITAS sent you, tell them I haven't finished my review.
VERITAS did not send me.
That is not comforting.
It should not be.
Then who did?
Ezra said.
People who noticed the same leak.
Then you are not VERITAS.
The leak is.
She glanced once down the hallway, not nervously, professionally.
Your anomaly is not confined to firmware. The same phrase appeared in an Ariston Lab sequence file tagged NEP001 within the last 48 hours.
Ezra's breath caught. On his kitchen counter, the partial metadata still glowed in the air where Malik had sent it.
How do you know that?
Because VERITAS was never as private as it thought,
she said.
That is a sentence people use when they want trust before evidence.
Open the door before Voss's people learn Malik helped you. The evidence is already moving.
Ezra went still. Ortega's expression did not change.
You asked him for raw commit metadata. That may keep people alive. It may also get him noticed.
You have 30 seconds to give me a better reason,
Ezra said.
Medical code, a dead doctor's archive, and a skull file. One path.
Ezra looked back toward the kitchen. NEP001. Voss archive. No interrupt window. His headache had become a bell struck inside bone.
Dr. Kane?
Ortega said, quieter now.
If that build reaches beta untouched, it will not be the first experiment.
That did it. Ezra unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door as far as the chain allowed. Ortega held his gaze.
Come in,
he said.
But you are making the second pot of tea. And you are going to explain... No. Start with why you know Malik's name.
Tessa Navarre flagged him to us 6 weeks ago. He matched a pattern of DevOps leads who answer ethics calls before they call legal. There are not many of you.
He slipped the chain free. Ortega stepped inside, and the hallway seemed to close behind her like a sealed file. Somewhere over the Pacific coast of Peru, the cargo plane shifted in its airspeed, and Iris's stomach lifted with it. She did not move. The woman in the navy coat had been watching her for the last half hour to see if she would, and Iris had decided 3 hours back that she would not give the woman the satisfaction of a flinch the woman could measure. She counted what was still hers. A cracker in her sweatshirt pocket. The right lace tied. The word she had made the woman take back. Van had become car. 3 things. The hum was still there under the plane, older than the engines, closer to her teeth than the air. Her grandmother had said once that the hum sounded the same in every basement in the world because the ground was always praising God, and the only difference between basements was how much the people upstairs had spilled on the floor. Iris did not know if her grandmother had been right. She knew the hum had been there before Voss was, and that meant it had been there before the doctors had given the hum new names she had to learn to be afraid of. She closed her eyes and let the hum be older than the new names. For one breath, it sounded almost like singing. Then the plane corrected its angle, and the woman in the navy coat looked at her again, and Iris went back to counting exits.